Hi, I'm Mandy of Cut It Up Quilts. I have a fun and easy project for you today that'll introduce you to collage quilting. If you've never collage quilted before, this project will take you from start to finish on how the process works and give you a small project for you to decide whether or not you like it. This is the pattern we're going to be working with today. It's a whatever pattern from Laura Heine. It's called Mr. Edmond. Super easy project, great for using up scraps. Everyone's got some sort of something in their scrap bin that they can make this pattern out of. I'm gonna switch views on you and we're gonna start working on our project. So before I do that, actually, let's open this up. This is what comes in the whatever pattern. Is just a single page front and back. The pattern piece is on the back, so we're going to be building this dog. I've gathered my supplies, so I have a silicone fuse mat. I have a couple number 2 pencils because I'm always losing them. I have my Karen K. Buckley medium perfect scissors. These have that micro serrated edge. I've got a variety of pressing sheets. If you have the old Goddess pressing sheets, those will work just fine. This sheet, I think, came with one of my fuse mats, but either of those will work along with the silicone fuse mat. I'm going to set all of that aside. I've already put the pattern underneath the silicone fuse mat. I have an ironing pad on underneath all of this so I can work right on the surface. The other thing we need is Steam-A-Seam 2. If you've never worked with Steam-A-Seam 2 before, it comes on a roll by the yard at your fabric store. You can find it by the sheet. You can even buy it by the box if you are thinking that you're going to do a lot of collaging. It's a 2-sided product, so one side has paper backing with adhesive webbing on it, and the other side has a paper backing that you're going to peel away. I'm going to set this aside. We are going to use one piece of fabric that I didn't fuse already, just to show you how this process goes. So this is Steam-A-Seam 2. I'm going to peel off my paper backing, and that fusible is going to stick to one side. So this paper backing goes in the garbage. Your fabric is right side up. Your Steam-A-Seam 2 has the sticky side facing up, and the paper backing that's left is facing down. I'm just going to lay this right on top of here. This is going to build Mr. Edmond's shirt. So when you use Steam-A-Seam 2, I don't have any other fabric pieces that aren't coming from my scrap bin to put on here. I'm going to trim this away just because, number one, I can use this later on for scraps if I needed to add something on here. And number two, it's going to prevent that sticky from getting on my fuse mat. So this piece you can set aside. So this is my silicone fuse mat that I have here. I'm going to place this fabric side down. I'm grabbing my iron. Now this iron is on its highest setting. It has no water in it. I don't want any steam on here at this point. When you Steam-A-Seam 2, it becomes permanent. So no water, but a nice hot iron. And I'm gonna just press the paper backing, get it nice and hot, and melt that fusible onto the fabric. So if there's any residue from the Steam-A-Seam 2 that got on here, you're just gonna make sure you clear that off your fuse mat so it doesn't end up getting on your project. So my fabric is on here, right side up. I've heated it up with the iron, and now if I peel away the paper backing partially, the sticky is onto the fabric. So I'm going to take this to my pattern, and I'm going to use this to build our dog's shirt. So I'm going to peel this back, not quite all the way. I want to keep some portion of it adhered to the paper backing because I'm going to re-adhere this. If you've taken a collage quilt class in the past, especially if it was teaching the Laura Heine techniques, then you may have learned a different process. So I've exposed my paper backing and I'm tracing on the paper backing. And because this is going to be covered by other pieces, I don't really need to include this in my traced out line. I really just need wherever the shirt is going to show, and not really much more. So I've traced the outline of the shirt, and because I want these pieces to eventually lay on top of my shirt, I've taken my line just inside the area where the tie is. So I'm going to take my fabric and I'm going to fold it back onto my Steam-A-Seam 2. So it's not adhered back on here yet, but I'm going to bring my iron back over and we'll refuse it. So paper or fabric side down on a clean fuse mat. I've got my hot iron with no steam, as hot as it goes, and we're going to refuse that. And then I can cut this out. So these Karen K. Buckley scissors have a little micro serrated edge, and that just adds some stability to your project when it's finished. Almost like creating little mini pinking edge that isn't really visible to the eye. And I'm just going to cut along that line. If this were a lighter fabric, I might be more inclined to cut just inside of my pencil line, but you're not going to see this pencil line on the fabric, and this is going to be covered by other pieces anyhow. So this extra piece is going to go into my scrap bin for another project. I've cut out my t-shirt here. I'm going to peel off my paper backing. So my adhesive should be on the fabric. If you went to peel this back and your adhesive were not attached to the fabric but still on here, all you would simply do is lay it back down, turn it over, take it back to the iron and press that down. Ours is adhered though, so I'm going to just peel this away. The other piece of paper goes in the garbage, and I'm going to line this up with my pattern. Now frequently, especially when a lot of stuff overlaps, I find it easier to just work with two patterns. So my shirt's laid down here. I'm going to start working on building the rest of it. I've already cut a lot of stuff out, but I just want to walk you through a couple of steps. So let's do the bow tie next, or at least talk about the bow tie. I'm not going to cut this one out. I'm just going to trace it out and show you. So this bow tie can actually be made in 3 pieces. You could make all 3 pieces a different fabric. You could do them all with the same fabric. Because I've already cut the shirt to go underneath of the bow tie, I can trace right along this line. But here, I want my bow tie to go underneath that little center piece. So I'm gonna, again, trace just a little ways inside the center of the bow tie. And then we would simply fold this back over, take our iron and fuse it back down. And it's ready to cut out. Done the bow tie pieces. I'm gonna add those in just a second, but before I do that, I wanna talk about his shirt. So, well, I wanna talk about two things. I wanna talk about his shirt and I wanna talk about using dark fabric. So this is a dark fabric, and if I were to make his shirt out of this fabric, I would do it in a couple pieces. So this piece up here is all one piece. But especially if you're working with scraps, you may not have a big enough piece to extend it all the way down to these edges of the shirt. So what you could do is just like before, just trace inside of the bow tie up here. And then you can do these little tips of his collar in a separate little chunk. So this way you'll save fabric. Now, with dark fabric, if I were to take this to the iron, and let's just show it. So if I took this over to the iron and put my iron on it, those pencil marks usually disappear more than that. So for the sake of TV, let's pretend that this fabric was dark enough to make my pencil lines disappear. So to prevent that, before I fuse this down, I would trace on the back side of my paper backing. So that would allow those pencil lines to show up better. Usually on really dark fabric, and I would think this is dark enough that maybe the light dots make it more visible. These pencil lines, if you iron this down, will completely disappear. So the way you do that is fabrics right side down, paper backings back over the fabric. I've not fused it yet, back on, and then I just trace out my piece that I want to cut. And then I would just iron it back down with my iron, and it would be ready to cut out. So I've already cut out some pieces. We're gonna start just building our Emerson block. And this whole process really is just a matter of just doing this over and over again, repeating the same process over and over again until you built your whole project. So this is the piece that I chose for my shirt. And just like I showed you, I did it in 3 pieces. So this just lays down right here. And his shirt collars are gonna go on here. I think this one's on this side. And just one important thing to remember, anytime you're putting something down, make sure you take the paper backing off. Now at this point, none of this is fused down. So if I wanted to shift those collars around or shift anything around, I could just pick it up and shift it around. Let's see, I've got a bow tie here somewhere. So these are my bow tie pieces. And I want that center circle right on top. So I'm gonna lay these down first. And just be mindful that you're covering all your edges. There's my puppy dog in the background. You hear barking. That's Cicely. And my husband yelling at her. So sometimes the paper backing is a little resistant to coming off. There we go. And it doesn't matter what order you build your dog in, just do it in a way that makes sense to you. And keep in mind like what thing is going to be on top and what thing is going to be underneath. So this center little bow tie piece is going to be on top of the other pieces. So I cut these with that overlapping edge. Oh, and here's this little muzzle. Collage quilting makes a lot of garbage, so it's always nice to have a garbage can close by. This goes here, and I just want to make sure, I think I intended my collar to be on top of it, so you can just easily, nothing's fused down, so you can easily lift that and slip this little muzzle into place. This is one of his eyeballs, and I've cut out, was in my scrap bin, a little piece of floral print, and I thought it would be cute to do the inside of his eyeballs. So I've rough cut this out, but I want to trim away some of the background and define it a little more. Now, I used to, when I started collage quilting, trim all the way up and get every bit of background off of here, but when I took a class from Laura Heine, I learned that you don't really have to do that. And in most instances, that background adds a little extra definition and pop to whatever you are cutting out. One of the final pieces that I don't have cut out and ready to go is his face. So I did pull out this for my scrap, and I had intended to use it for a different project. And again, you peel back your paper backing. See, I'd even drawn on this previously. I'm leaving it partially attached to my paper. And if you had a piece maybe that, say, didn't quite fit or cover his face, you could try turning it. Sometimes if you turn it on its corner, you can get a better coverage, but this will fit just like this. So when you do his face, you want to make sure that you come underneath of his muzzle. And underneath that corner of the tie and up this way. And then I want to bring this just underneath of his ear. And I want to do the same over here, just bring it underneath of his ear. So we've got a little overlap. And then I cut, this piece I can save for another project. So I'm going to lay my paper backing back down, and I'm going to put this over here where there's not my project underneath of it. And I'm just going to iron that back down, get it nice and hot. Again, no steam in the iron. Not yet. That'll be another video where we talk about finishing the project. I'm going to have probably about 5 or 6 different ways that I'm going to show you how to finish this off. Some of the ways are going to be a no-sew technique. Some of the ways are going to be no binding. And then I'm going to show you a way to finish it with straight line quilting and binding and finish it just like a regular quilt. So I'm going to set those eyeballs aside. I'm going to line it up here. I'm going to bring my ears on top. Bring this one on top. Shift it a little bit into position. You could trace out all the whiskers if you wanted to, but I find it's just as effective to free cut them. So there's about 10 of these on each side, and I'm just gonna put them where I feel like they. So he's ready to fuse down now. I have him on top of a silicone fuse mat, and I'm going to bring in my pressing sheet now, but first I want to make sure there's no stray bits of anything that might accidentally get fused to him. I want to make sure all my edges are covered. Looks like maybe this needs to shift. So all my edges are covered and it's ready to fuse down. So I'm going to use this goddess press sheet just because I've cut it and it's small. No steam in my iron, just a really hot iron, as hot as I can get it. And I'm going to fuse everything down. And I try to just pick it up and set it down so I don't accidentally shift any of the pieces that are underneath of here, especially as I first get started. Once you get it heated up from the front, then you can carefully flip it over and do a fuse from the back. Just make sure as best you can that nothing's shifted in the process of moving it. And you can give it a nice fuse from the back of it as well. So let's turn this over and see where we're at. All right, so I give it just a second to cool off here, and you should be able to peel it up in one piece. So in the next video, we'll talk about finishing it. You could take this right over to a single piece of fabric and fuse it down to the fabric, and it will be ready to quilt or make into a quilt block. Or you can fuse it onto a slightly bigger piece of fabric and place it on a canvas. You could, even if you wanted to, make a collaged background, and I will do all of those things in a separate video on another day. I want to have enough little Emersons done to create several different finishes for you. And I think, so these are ones that I've been working on so far. You can see I did the ears differently on this one. So the head is sitting on top of the ears in this one, and it really doesn't matter. And I think only if you were looking for it could you tell that the ears are underneath the head. But these ones, the ears are on top of the head. So I'm gonna leave you here, and next time I join you, I'm gonna show you several different ways to finish your Emerson project.